Chapter 8. Philip stopped staring at the fire and looked at the painting of a castle that hung over the mantelpiece. "Is that Beaver Towers, Mr. Edgar?" The old beaver nodded sadly. Philip stared at the picture, and he had the oddest feeling that someone was trying to tell him something. What was it? Something that Mr. Edgar had said. "Did you say there was a secret passage into the castle?" Philip asked thoughtfully. "That's correct." Mr. Edgar turned with a puzzled frown. "Why?" "Well," began Philip. "Now, young'un," interrupted the old beaver, "if you're thinking of bursting into the castle and rescuing all the prisoners, just forget it. The place is crawling with Oyens, dratted watchdogs. It's a brave fort, but you wouldn't stand a chance."
Go. "I know," said Philip eagerly, "but you said that the passageway came out in the library. Could I get there and bring back one of your books of magic? If it was a book of escaping spells, you could magic the prisoners out of the castle and get them the cloud and to take us all off the island." "By Jove!" Mr. Edgar shouted and slapped his knee. "That's right, it might work. Mean leaving our old island to Owen?" "Of course, but—" He slapped his knee again. He who fights and runs away lives to fight another day." All the slapping and shouting woke up Baby B. "Hello, Grandpa Edgar," she said, jumping up on Mr. Edgar's lap. "I brinched the saver, didn't I?" "You know what, Baby B." "I think you did," said the old beaver, giving his grandson a hug. "And I wasn't a bit scared of the growlers when we came through the trees," added Baby B proudly. "That's a good lad. You're a chip of the old block. Mind you, it's going to have to be bravery all round from now on. There's a special and highly dangerous mission taking place tonight." "Tonight?" said Philip. "So soon?" His heart had started bumping in a most alarming way. "Tomorrow it'll be too late, Owen. It's due for the third time tomorrow night. It's now or never." He
laid a gentle paw on Philip's knee. "Frightened, young'un?" Philip tried to speak, but his throat had gone all dry. He just nodded instead. "Course you are. I would be if I were in your shoes. Do you want to back out?" Philip looked in Mr. Edgar's kindly old eyes and shook his head. "That's the spirit, young'un. Knew you had it in you the minute I clapped eyes on you." Baby B bounced up and down on Mr. Edgar's lap and squeaked, "Hooray!" Then he stopped and asked, "What's he going to do?" Mr. Edgar put his finger to his lips and whispered, "Shh! Walls have ears, you know. He's going into Beaver Towers to get one of my books of magic." "Can I go too?" "Not right into the castle, no. That's a one-man mission. Now, don't sulk," he said, patting his grandson's head. "You've got your own important job. You must lead him through the forest and show him where the secret tunnel begins. That's a dangerous enough job for a young beaver like you. Remember, it will be night and the forest will be full of growlers." "Will I have to come back all by myself?" Baby B said, shivering at that thought. "Ah, that's where our brave little Robin comes in. No, Sergeant Robin, I haven't forgotten you."
Mr. Edgar said to the bird who flew on the mantelpiece, "You did very well in the forest when you rescued our young friend from the growlers. Splendid piece of quick thinking. Have to put you up for a promotion. Now, I want you to go to Baby B and do the same thing for him." Mr. Robin bobbed and flew down on Baby B's shoulders to show that he knew what he had to do. "Good," said Mr. Edgar. Then he turned to Philip. "Yours is the most dangerous job. The book you want is a big purple one, and it should be on the shelves next to the secret door." Mr. Edgar stood up swiftly. "Well, end of briefing. Any questions?" They all shook their heads. "In that case, drat me. Which I could go with you. An old duffer like me would be more trouble than he is worth. But I'll get to the mechanics to drive me over to Mrs. Badger's in that dratted car first thing in the morning. Until then, take care and good luck." Mr. Edgar saluted smartly, and Philip and Baby B stood up and saluted back. The robin flew onto Philip's head and tried to salute too, but his claws got caught in his wing and he fell over. Philip smiled, but he was too nervous to laugh. His mind was full of the night and the forest and the growlers.
"It's the silliest thing I ever heard," said Mrs. Badger crossly. "I just don't know what Mr. Edgar could be thinking of sending you all off into the night like this." "It's our only chance, Mrs. Badger," said Baby B. "The dratted witch comes to my—" "Baby B," Mrs. Badger gasped. "Where did you learn that word?" "Grandpa Edgar says it all the time. Drat the dratted witch, he says." "Well, it's no excuse for you to use it. I've never heard such a thing. Now upstairs and wash at once while I make you something to eat. You too, Philip." "But we'll get millions dirty again in the forest," said Baby B. "That's not the point. I'm not having you going out looking like a pair of tramps. No more."
Philip and Baby B went upstairs to the bathroom. Philip washed his hands and face, then Baby B stood on a chair in front of the basin and splashed and hummed and spilled water everywhere. He got some soap in his nose and he started sneezing, so he put his head in the bowl and made some more splashings. Philip sat quietly on the edge of the bath. He had a funny feeling in his tummy and his heart was pitter-pattering very fast. He wished he could hum as happily as Baby B. "Mrs. Badger wasn't really hungry," said Baby B, shaking his head and sending even more water flying from his fur. "It was only pretend angry to make you do smelly things like wash or go to bed." "Oh, it's not that," Philip started to say, but Baby B went rattling on. "That's why badgers are good at looking after you, because they keep badgering you until you do things." He pulled the plug out, but there was hardly any water left in the basin. It was all over the floor. "Oh, drat! Look at all the puggles," he said, and jumped from the chair into the largest pool so that water splashed everywhere. Philip rubbed Baby B's face and hands with a towel, then gave him a piggyback down the steep stairs to the kitchen. All through the meal, Baby B tried saying Philip's name, but he kept getting it wrong.
He tried Philly at Lippy, even Philarapeep, but most often it came out as Flippip. Philip said that Baby B could call him Flippip because it was easiest, and anyway, it was a good name. Baby B's chatter took Philip's mind off his worries. Even so, the flutters in his tummy made it hard to eat much. No matter how many times Mrs. Badger came to the table and said, "Now eat it up, both of you," they helped wash up, and Baby B broke a cup whilst he was showing Philip how good he was at catching. Mrs. Badger was still grumbling about the cup when they all sat down in the parlour to wait for the night to come. Soon, though, her grumbling and Baby B's humming stopped. The fire crackled, Mrs. Badger's rocking chair creaked, and the clock tick-tocked steadily. Philip sat in the window seat, watching the trees in the forest grow blacker as the sun set behind them. The sky became a darker and darker shade of blue, and finally he could see the twinkling of stars. He stood up and hoped that nobody would see how his knees shook. "Time to go, Baby B." The little beaver looked up from his colouring book and his eyes grew very wide. When he tried to say something to Mrs. Badger, his mouth opened and a funny squeaking noise came out. "Eek!" "Come on," said Philip, and took his little paw. "We'll be all right." At the front door, Mrs. Badger wrapped a scarf around Baby B's neck, and then she kissed them both on the top of the head. "Be careful," she said, and put her apron to her eyes. The robin flew down from his perch on the hat stand and landed on Baby B's shoulder. The front door closed behind them, and they moved off into the dark. They had only gone about 10 paces when they heard the first distant howl from the depths of the forest.